Happy Friday, folks. Good morning. Welcome to Talking March Madness. Day one of March Madness is in the books. I am here with Avery Jones. As you can see, I'm representing my St. John's. They dismantle Omaha by 30 points. And their matchup for Saturday against Arkansas, Rick Pitino versus John Calipari. But anyways, Avery, how are you today?
I'm doing great. It was a great first day of college basketball for the NCAA men's tournament. There were some shocks, there were some absolutely teams getting through, but all in all, when you talk about the madness of the NCAA tournament, there was nothing like that first day.
Yep, there's nothing like it. And what a way to kick things off, which we're going to talk about McNeese upsetting Clemson. And Avery, what's crazy about this game is that shortly before game started, there was some reports that came out that Will Wade is going to take the job at NC State.
Yes.
And that bothered me because that could really be detrimental to the team before they're about to play a game. This news gets leaked out and it's like, whoa, like we're getting ready to play this game, man. We get hit with this news. But I saw the post game interview today, this morning, and supposedly the coach, Wade, and the team had talked about this in advance about the possibility of him going somewhere. So there was a sense of transparency there.
Yes.
So I guess that made things a little okay. I'll take their word for it. I'll take the players' word for it. But and it didn't seem like it affected their game whatsoever.
Oh,
They absolutely picked up apart Clemson in the first half, but they almost blew it in that second half.
they almost did.
Listen, Avery, McNeese, this is what they did good. They put up 44 points in the paint. They did a great job in the paint. Um, but Clemson in the second half, they were on fire from downtown. They made 8 of 14. They were down by 22 with 7 minutes left.
Yes, at most they were down 24 points in the entire game. And the interesting thing is, and I kind of mentioned this yesterday, when I get to work, there is already a game on. It was the Purdue High Point, and Purdue was doing a really good job. When the McNeese Clemson game started, for some reason there was this sense in the air, even if you're talking about the transparency of Coach Wade possibly going to the Wolfpack of NC State because in literally the first 2 minutes, there was already official review and the game was only 2-2. So there was something kind of in an undercurrent for these two teams. And then all of a sudden, whether it's the transparency of McNeese's head coach getting another job, that did not bother them whatsoever because in the first half they were up 18 and at one point like I said they were up 24. Now in the first half it was a tale of in the game as a whole it was a tale of two teams. You had McNeese totally in control in the first half and you had Clemson still trying to figure themselves out but yet they went on a tear to try and overcome that huge deficit that they had. But for this kind of small school that's in Lake Charles, Louisiana. And that's another thing about these schools. I'm like, there's that grit in Louisiana. There's something about that grit in Louisiana. And granted, you're correct. The score does not dictate what that game was as a whole. And you're right. McNeese nearly lost it. But like one of my managers said at work, a win is a win. Now, the only weird thing is they now have to take that momentum and play Purdue. Now, Purdue has been a tale of two teams this season as well. They lost by 15 points to Michigan in Big Ten tournament. So I'm very interested to see how the McNeese Cowboys handle the Purdue Boilermakers, knowing that they literally had an ACC powerhouse school in a chokehold for like a game and a half. But in that first half, it was tough in the paint for both teams. But Clemson kind of battled back. They chipped it away. But in that last minute, McNeese just sealed the deal. An pathetic slam dunk by their power forward kind of just sealed it and said, "Hey, not today, not today. You had your chance, but not today."
Purdue is going to have their hands full with McNeese. McNeese, in order for them to have that upper hand against Purdue, they can't allow Purdue to out rebound them. You just can't. Purdue absolutely torture High Point in second chance points. So, but that's going to be a fun matchup to watch. Next up, and this one, I am so glad that my prediction for an upset came true, and that is Arkansas, the Razorbacks. They defeated Kansas Jayhawks. And John Calipari, whether you like him or hate him, you have to, and I repeat, you have to respect his confidence, his belief in his players. He doesn't give a damn what his record is. He believes in fresh start. He doesn't care about the past. He only focuses on going forward. And that's why he's been successful as a head coach and he's a Hall of Famer. So listen, I was shocked by what I saw in the second half by Kansas. Dickinson didn't score a basket. That was, I never would have imagined that. Zeke Mayo, he was quiet in the second half as well. What tortured Kansas in this game, especially that second half, was turnovers, 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 especially in those last, 5 minutes of the game,
Yes.
last 3, 4 minutes of the game. Those turnovers killed them big time. And Arkansas, they were clutch in the free throw in those last few minutes. Take it from there.
You're right. One thing I've noticed in the first set of games is when you have free throw opportunities, you need to make your free throws. This has been kind of a long-standing tradition in basketball, no matter the level you play at. Even when I played just, 1 year in middle school, my head coach was very uh, assertive in the fact that we had to practice our free throws. So when you get on the line, you need to make your free throws. Another thing with Coach Calipari, we've said this before, whether you like or hate head coaches, when you have head coaches that can empathize with your players, sympathize with your players, that can connect with your players, the players will give you everything that they can give you when the time is needed. And another thing about college basketball, just like we saw with McNeese, you can have a really great deficit, but then all of a sudden, if you have a team that goes on a 10-0 run or a 10-2 run, next thing you know, you're down by 15, and next thing you know, you're down by 2, and you start to break down. So that's what we anticipated. We figured that Arkansas would pick apart Kansas. And like we said, Kansas had a hot start at the beginning of the season. But if they were not prepared for the Razorbacks, then Calipari and his team were just going to pick them apart. And you saw that. And that's one thing we're probably going to see in this tournament. If turnovers are going to be the dagger for schools, it's also going to be rebounds and free throws. So if you cannot handle keeping the ball when you have the ball, it's going to come down to, those last second shots, those Hail Mary passes. But the players need to be aware of the surroundings, especially in the paint. They need to be smart about their passes. They need to be confident in themselves, you know, in order to, if they know they have a team on the rope, just go ahead and take them down. We're not fond of the lopsided losses, but in this case, a national title's on the line. So just like McNeese had Clemson. They had him. they just let them come back. In this case, Arkansas was more of the fighting part of trying to get under the Jayhawks skin, and the Jayhawks were just making too many mistakes, and Arkansas capitalized on that. So they won by 6, but all in all, it was just a kind of very instrumental and assertive picking apart of a really good Jayhawks team that in a way I don't think they lost to Arkansas. I think they lost to themselves.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I agree. So, Arkansas St. John's Saturday. This is going to be the fifth head-to-head matchup between Calipari and Pitino. Calipari won the last two matchups in 2012 and 2014. Pitino hasn't beaten Calipari since '97. So, this is the great moment. This is a great chance for him to settle the score. So, but Avery, the next game, and this game was late, and as you know, I'm a person that goes to bed early. So, but I saw the highlights of this game before hopping in on this. And I am so glad that this game lived up to my expectation. And that game that we're talking about, UC San Diego versus Michigan. At least we saw this San Diego team show some fight. They got off to a slow start. They
Yes.
were committing silly turnovers. Michigan jumped on them early, but Michigan, something we've seen all season long, and it happened in this game as well. They jump early and then they can't hang on to the lead. And San Diego in the second half, like I said, that's where they show their resilience as a team, and that's why they've been a good team all season long. They grabbed their first lead of the game, which came around the 2 minute mark in the second half, which was 65 to 63. And if you're a Wolverines fan, I don't know how you'd have a heart attack. Wolverine fans, I'm talking to you guys. I don't know how you guys managed to watch this game because when they grabbed the lead in the second half, I can only imagine, oh boy, momentum swung, but Wolverines survived and advanced. Just like the 1983 NC State documentary, survive and advance. Take it from there.
You're right. The one thing about that, we mentioned, what could be an upset game. This is kind of one on our list too, but it was also what team uh that the Michigan Wolverines would show up. Would they send a very assertive and physical team, or would they send a laid back team and just react to what happened? But we've kind of said this before, and I kind of mentioned this to my colleagues at work. The number 12 seed is this magical Cinderella team. For some reason, any team that gets this 12 seed, there's some grit, there's some heart, there's determination, there's some, hey, we could only be maybe a 5 to 7 point underdog, but we're gonna try and knock off these top teams, especially if analysts or fans don't give them those underdogs a bit of credit. But this was a very good game, and like you said, for a 10 o'clock game, if you're a Michigan fan and watching this late at night, if you had neighbors, your neighbors were probably like, "What was that screaming?" Because 2 minutes in a college basketball game, it is like you're biting your nails, you're pulling out your hair because you see San Diego fought, clawed, climbed their way back, and the Wolverines were kind of just looking like, "Okay, what happened?" But Michigan, like I said, a win is a win. They won by 3, but that was a close game that even the Wolverines should say, "Hey, we need to look at what went wrong." So I think, like we mentioned, some teams are not taking some of these other schools seriously. And when you do not take schools seriously, you get upset alert or you get upset. So Michigan definitely needs to look at the game plan, look at the playbook. They need to look back at the highlights to see what worked, what didn't work, because granted, Michigan won, but now Michigan needs to take that next step into round two. And if they do not make some adjustments, again, they could be on upset alert or upset.
They're gonna have to clean things up because in order for them to go far, they had to do so much better. They had to hang on to those big leads. They were lucky. They were lucky last night. But Avery, other games that took place yesterday, Houston defeated SIU Edwardsville 78 to 40. Auburn defeated Alabama State 83 to 63. The first half, Alabama State, they put up a good fight, but
They
they
hung
couldn't
in
hang
there.
on.
Alabama State hung in there. I think at most they were down, I think maybe 10 in the first half, but there was some fight. There was some fight in that team, but once the second half started, Auburn just kind of ran away with it.
I feel that Auburn's 10-0 run at the end of the first half changed everything. It all went their way after that. Tennessee over Woodward, Woodford 77 to 62. Texas A&M over Yale 80 to 71.
Yale gave him a fight.
Yep.
I kind of mentioned it. Do not sleep on these Ivy League schools. Yale gave them a fight. At one point, I think Yale was up about five. I think that was late in the first half. But Yale gave them a fight. The Aggies nearly blew it. The Aggies nearly blew it.
Oh yeah. But much credit to Yale. Even though they lost, but they went out with dignity. We could say
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
UCLA over Utah State 72 to 47. This other one caught me by surprise, but I'm not disappointed because I picked them to win. Gonzaga just
Yeah.
dominated Georgia 89 to 68.
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah.
was uh that was something else.
Oh, and
Um
also Creighton taking down Louisville. I kind of said Louisville, you were in the ACC final. You had an opportunity to kind of prove your doubters wrong, but they just did not show up for Creighton. They didn't.
Jemiah Neal showed up for Cream.
Yes, he
29
did.
points, 29 points is career high, 12 rebounds. Ryan Kalkbrenner, 4 blocks. He was terrific. Um, I felt bad for Louisville guard Rean Smith. He re-injured his right ankle. And it was tough to see that because his mom was in attendance.
Yeah.
And there's just something about when you see a parent um, seeing their kid in that situation. That made me uncomfortable. I hated seeing that. That's one of the things I hate injuries in sports. I hate seeing that.
Yeah.
But it makes me hate it even more when I see that the parent is in attendance.
Yeah. And
And
parents
especially in that
parents are
magnitude.
parents. You
Yeah,
know, they
especially in a
care.
tournament.
Oh, absolutely. Our parents are parents, no matter what, and they care about their kids. So, especially when you have parents show up, for tournaments and games, and you want to be there for them and support. And I'm pretty sure he knew his mom was there too. And I even though I think he's probably hurt on the fact that he's injured, I think he's probably more hurt on the fact that his mom saw him get hurt. And sometimes that kind of weighs on us about kids because we kind of feel like we disappointed our parents in a way, even though it was not our fault. But the best to him, I hope he rehabs well, he can get back on the court and knowing that his mom was there, he's got great support. He's got great support.
Support is very key, especially from your family and close friends, but more importantly, family, especially from your parents. But I feel for the kid, he had missed the last 4 games. He's tough. He's a tough kid.
Hey,
And I respect him for playing there, but um hopefully he recovers and it's just tough to see that. This is Creighton's fifth straight win in the first round. Louisville, even though they lost, We got to tip our hat to Chucky Hepburn. He had an incredible season. And look how they bounced back, Avery. I mean, this team, the they were 4-28 2 seasons ago. Last year they were 8-24, and then they jumped to 27-7 this year. This is their first March Madness since before COVID,
Yeah.
2019. So, great season by Louisville. Yes, it came to a disappointing end, but going forward, they have a bright
They have a
future.
foundation to work with. And when you have a good foundation, you can just build upon that, make some adjustments, make some upgrades. And this could be, just the beginning, for a good run for Louisville in the next few years.
Shout out to Drake, not the rapper, but the team.
But
They defeated Missouri.
yes.
Um, Unbelievable performance. This is their first tournament victory since 2021. Um, Missouri, even though they did rally, they trailed as many as 15, but the Bulldogs they kept their
Yeah.
foot on the
And if
gas.
I if I recall, I don't think Drake lost the lead at any point in that game. I that was upset alert, knowing that Missouri was a sixth seed. If I'm correct, I don't think once Drake got the lead, I don't think they ever lost it. Missouri was always trying to come from behind.
Yep, yep. And now they will play Texas Tech, which I'm looking forward to see that matchup. And they will set it off on Saturday at 6:10 p.m. Eastern Time. And last but not least, BYU. They defeated VCU 80-71. And this is the first time that BYU will advance to round of 32 since Jimmy Fredette, 2011.
Oof.
So damn, 2011. That was a heck of a year. I remember that. But BYU's defense, they showed up. They played terrific, and they will play against Wisconsin, which is another matchup that I'm looking
Yes.
forward to.
Hey, what Wisconsin, they showed some domination last night. So BYU definitely needs to come prepared for, the Wisconsin Badgers.
Indeed, yes, indeed. So Avery, today's game obviously starts at noon, 12:15. Number 8, Mississippi State versus Baylor. There are so many key games here, but if you will have to pick your your big three of today's game that you're looking forward to watch, or that you feel that it will be a great tight game, which of those three games would it be?
I think it's going to be, kind of the thought I had yesterday. The 4 p.m. games, those mid-afternoon games, were your kind of upset alerts. So, I will be paying attention to the 250 game, which is Mount St. Mary's versus Duke. Like you said, Mount St. Mary's, they played in, they're 16 seed. Duke cannot fall asleep on this team. If the Duke Blue Devils already know, they've probably seen what happened the day before. So they are aware that they need to be prepared. They need to not be lazy. They need to not take Mount St. Mary's for granted. And they just need to come out and play very good, decent, assertive, smart basketball. The 4:05 game, this team is playing with some grit and a chip on their shoulder. Number 11, North Carolina. Number 6, Ole Miss. Ole Miss, if you don't already know, be prepared for a hurting. I think North Carolina is going to come out. They're going to play a physical game. They're going to take advantage of everything they have. I think they're going to be strong on the boards. Look to the Tar Heels to probably out rebound Ole Miss, but also to be very physical, I think, in the beginning of the game. And if they are up, just watch them, just steamroll over the Rebels later in the second half. And of course, that would be upset alert, 11 taking down a 6. But then eh, 30 minutes later, I think Grand Canyon and Maryland 13 versus 4. I think that's another upset alert too. Grand Canyon the past couple years have kind of slipped under the radar. They get in the tournament, they play these, top teams, ACC, SEC team, Big Ten teams, and then all of a sudden you hear upset alert, and there's Grand Canyon again. So the Maryland Terrapins, they need to be prepared. They need to, again, not look down on Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon needs to play some smart basketball, definitely in the paint, go for outside a bit. You get a school that's hot from the 3-point line, that could be a detriment to a team as well. But I would say those three teams, those three games could be something mid-afternoon on a Friday that could be really great to watch. So if your team's still in it, root for it, because teams now, they need every bit of fan support, they can get, whether it be in person, on social media, or, just putting that, great thought out in the universe, for your team, because just like football, we said, any given Saturday in the tournament, it's any given day, any given time, noon, tea time, supper. Throughout the day, you could have some very good surprises, and this is still early. We should not be surprised when upsets happen at this point, unless it's a really bad one. But when you get some upsets that are close, that's when you see a team show up and say, hey, we're taking our chance now. Just like, Eminem, you only get one shot. And for some of these teams, that is just the one shot, and they're going to take it.
For me, it's almost similar to yours. I'm gonna give my love to Grand Canyon. I'm actually pulling for them to win this game. I like Maryland, but it's just something about Grand Canyon that, I'm just gonna pull for them. So the three games that I have that I'm looking forward to watching, hopefully is a good one. Ole Miss versus UNC, Tar Heel Nation, um, Maryland versus Grand Canyon, and last but not least, UConn versus Oklahoma. Those three, those are my top three right there.
Oh yeah, I agree that UConn Oklahoma game, that's a 9:25, kind of Friday night classic. And like I said, you're talking about a UConn team that won last year. They were the overall number one seed last year, and they've just been, you're not sure what kind of team the Connecticut Huskies are gonna be. So this could be a very interesting game and a very good test for UConn, and especially on a Friday night, UConn needs to come to play. They need to come to play, and they're only favored by 5. So that should tell you something right there.